Hey, what's up guys? We're back again to find the new best deck in Clash Royale. I'm going to be searching through the comment section to take a look at your top decks and find out if they're trash or treasure. In this series, we discover new strategies and new ways of playing that I would have never thought of, and some new top tier card combinations that are fun to play. And if there's any weaknesses in a deck, I'll be recycling some cards to make it better. It's time to dive into trash or treasure and assert dominance. Lots of love to everyone that's supporting the channel with creator code SirTag make high effort videos like this one possible. Let's assess the strength of the PokeStats guy's deck. He says his Golem Balloon deck can always make a comeback. So it's time to see if our Balloon can soar to the moon with Golem. Oh my gosh. First play, you drop Barbarians in the back. That's a card that I dread. First off, usually Golem decks don't even have a big spell or they've got Lightning. So it's really hard to break through Barbarians. Now he's got the elite ones too. Dude, if you're ready for the Barbarians evolution, you guys already know this guy's going to be playing it too. Fortunately for us, because we have Tornado, we are able to activate King Tower against the E-Barbs. So not the worst thing in the world. Oh, great. Yeah, I kind of need my Tornado for that. At least you've got Goblin Cage, Lumberjack, and also have the Tornado for Hog Riders, so you have a multifarious ways of countering that. The one thing that I dislike about the deck right out of the jump, if I'm being real with y'all, is we don't have any cheap distractions. We don't have a Barbaro, we don't have a Skeleton Army, we're just relying on making the right play every time. If we overcommit and we don't have enough Elixir, we're going to be screwed if our opponent spams on the other side. So that's one of the main difficulties with this deck. Fortunately for us, we do have Night Witch, which is getting a pretty big buff. I'm very psyched for that. Also, if you guys are unaware, notice that Golem placement I did. Reason why that Golem placement is extremely good is it body blocks the Night Witch so the Night Witch doesn't endeavor in front. If you drop your Night Witch in the wrong spot, then obviously what's going to happen is the Night Witch will go ahead and then it will wind up dead and then your Golem has no support. Look at the bats going behind the Golem. One of them should die and then the other one will stay alive, right? Awesome. So if you didn't know, after the Golem pops, the tower will go and target one of the units behind it, behind the Golemites, because the Golemites technically don't appear on the screen immediately. And then after that unit's dead, then it will go back to targeting on top of the Golemites. So that's why one of the bats survived and the other one didn't. Always targets one unit. I'm going to go for a Lumberjack, and I think that's going to be our best bet. I don't even want a Tornado unless I have to, because as I said before, I kind of need to save that. I don't have any other cheap distractions, so I am forced to do this. I'm going to go in for a Balloon just to test the water, since I do have the Lumberjack Rage. That's the main benefit of this deck, is being able to utilize the Lumberjack paired with the Balloon and then making sure that your opponent's not really equipped to deal with it. Notice how he had to drop a Lightning, which is a negative trade. I wasn't going to get anything out of the Lumberjack anyway, so I got a +1 trade going in for the Balloon and forcing out more Elixir for my dude. Bad thing about this match is the fact that he's going to have Barbarians, E-Barbs, and then he's also going to end up having like an excessive amount of counters to Golem, right? So here again, if I had Skeleton Army because his Wizard was out of cycle, we might have been able to defend this way more cost effectively than just dropping a Goblin Cage and then eating a ton of E-Barb hits. I'm going to go for a Balloon, and we'll see what we can make happen here, but we are taking so much damage from that Elite Barbarian. It is tragic. Lightning's coming through, but it's not even hitting the Night Witch. Wait, the Night Witch didn't have any HP. Let's go. 16 seconds remaining. I think we are going to be able to defend this for the rest of the game. I don't know. I should be able to hit this Tornado perfectly and take 0 damage from the Hog Rider. Let's freaking go. So that's the placement that you guys got to do if you're playing against Hog Rider. We walk away with a remarkably clean victory. I like the deck a lot. I just think that it will fall prey to bait decks because our card cycle is super slow and clunky, and we only have one small spell, which is the Tornado, and we have nothing to immediately remove Goblin Barrels. Also, Wall Breaker decks could be a challenge, and then of course, if you're playing against Bridge Spam players and they spam on the other side when you're going for the Golem at the wrong time, this deck is immediately dead. However, the core concept of Balloon, Night Witch, and Golem is incredibly cool, and after the balance changes, it's only gonna get better. As is, I gotta rate the current deck a 6.5 out of 10. There's a ton of power behind the core concept of Golem Night Witch with Balloon, but there's still a lot to be improved. This new powerful Golem deck that I'm showing on the screen is played at top ladder, and it's got a ton of different answers to Bridge Spam with the Tornado and Skeleton Army. With the added benefit of the newly buffed Battle Healer, it is bound to keep your Night Witch and Balloon alive just a bit longer for extra value. Plus, when you have Arrows and Tornado, you'll be crushing all of the bait decks. If you switch to this top ladder Golem Balloon deck after the balance changes, your Golem Balloon strategy will rise to an 8.5 out of 10. Gear Rust has an interesting twist on Royal Giant with Goldenite. Let's see how it works out. On to the next one, and we're playing against Dashing. It's so fitting. We've got the Goldenite in the deck, but I feel like he shouldn't be here, you know? Out of all the cards in Clash Royale with Goldenite, you kind of want to be running Tornado, and you don't have it in the deck. And also, for anyone that's running Royal Giant, the best champions are Skeleton King and Monk. Monk is allowing you to reflect things that are potentially targeting the Royal Giant, like cannons, musketeers, high damage cards. And it works really nicely together. because obviously if your Royal Giant's not able to get attacked, then you're going to get a ton of value. Golden Knight doesn't have that much health, so he's not able to tank for very long. You guys just saw he got obliterated by a simple mini P.E.K.K.A there. And I had a Giant Skeleton supporting him too. Just didn't feel right, you know? I'm going to go in for arrows here because we are able to eviscerate the rest of the Spear Goblins as they pop out. And if he activates King Tower, it doesn't matter because guess what? We're going to end up having Royal Giant. That's another benefit of running Royal Ghost is a lot of times people will waste their King Tower activation Tornado, waste 3 Elixir, and you'll get a huge positive Elixir trade. The negative about this matchup is obviously we're not necessarily going to be able to collect all the souls like we typically would with the Skeleton King from all of his bait cards. So generally when you're playing Royal Giant, you're going to get super hyped up whenever you match into someone that's got log bait because you're like, well, there's nothing you can do because I'm going to have like a Mother Witch and a Skeleton King and all this other stuff. And this guy's got the Mother Witch. Yo, he's stealing our strats. It's like he's listening to me or something. But the good thing about the deck is the Giant Skeleton card combination with its core of Royal Giant, Giant Skeleton is one of the best things in the entire game. Played by pro players at the top of the ladder for, like, I feel like a millennium at this point. Every single time that I see a Royal Giant, generally paired with a Skeleton King or Giant Skeleton. And Giant Skeleton, when it dies, it blasts back all the units that were attacking it. So if your opponent is forced to go and attack that first, and they can't attack the Royal Giant, then what's going to happen? They're going to get knocked back, and then they have to wander their way back to attack the Royal Giant afterward. So the core concept, super strong. I love, love, love using Giant Skeleton in all my Royal Giant decks. Here's the thing. I can't necessarily counter any of these cards coming at me unless I go in for a Hunter and then a Zap, so then I stop the Dark Prince's charge. It's going to be a bunch of Elixir for me as well, because he's going to Fireball on that too. I got to go for a Ghost afterward. Fortunately for us, the Dark Prince doesn't maul my tower, but I'm looking at the game and I'm figuring, how am I going to break through? Like, I need to be able to go and get through a Goblin Hut. Oh, well, that's a way. I guess if Royal Ghost goes invisible, we vibe with that. But a Giant Skeleton here to body block for some of the Spear Goblins, maybe all of them. Oh, wow. Giant Skeleton, you aren't very smart. I guess you're a skeleton. You don't really have a brain. Feels bad, man. You went back towards the Goblins for no reason, leaving us a wide opening for our opponent to get huge value. I bet you he decides to go in for Zappies, so we're going to go in for an Arrows here. Oh, the Golden Knight locked on the tower somehow. Yeah, so I guess if you get lucky like me, Golden Knight's a really good card without Tornado, but after the buff to all the other cards and the nerf to Golden Knight, like, I just rather run Monk, you know? That was quite possibly the luckiest interaction I've had in my life. But yeah, the core concept of Royal Giant and Giant Skeleton is incredible. My only explanation for why that Golden Knight decided to dash from the river to my opponent's tower after the nerf without Tornado is the fact that my dude's got the name Dashing. He powered up our dash with his name, and it just had to happen. The core concept of Royal Giant, Fisherman, and Giant Skeleton is a solid 7.5 out of 10 for me. But since you've got the Golden Knight, as weird as it sounds, it drags the deck down quite a bit. Golden Knight's just significantly stronger with Goblin Drill, Tornado, and Electro Giant decks, and those, he's absolutely overpowered. You tornado units close to your opponent's tower, so you reliably get the dash onto their units, hit the tower, and collect a huge amount of damage. Basically, the lucky dash that happened in this game, but with Tornado, you make it happen reliably every time. If you're looking for the best Royal Giant deck in the game, this Royal Giant Skeleton King deck has been played at number 1 and 2 in the world at the same time. The world champion, Muhammad Light, plays this as one of his main decks, and I would have to rate it as a 9.5 or 10 out of 10. There just aren't many counters to it in the entire game. But if you want to run Giant Skeleton Royal Giant, this is another awesome option. This Royal Giant Giant Skeleton deck is played at top ladder incredibly consistently, it's easier to play, and it gives you speedy wins without using any champions. No matter which of these 2 Royal Giant decks you choose, they can carry you to the top of ladder. Jason's out here rushing through with a Ram Rider Royal Recruits Goblin Barrel deck. 3 win conditions for the price of 1. It's either going to overwhelm me or my opponents. Let's find out. We got another one against the Clash family. Hopefully his clan will power up my gameplay just like the last game, because we know we've got a family of Royal Recruits and a ton of bait cards in our deck. Pretty fitting. And then I guess the witch spawns an endless swarm of skeletons that are kind of a part of her family, but then she sends them off into battle, so I don't know how good of a mom she is. I'm going to go in for a Goblin Barrel at the start, right into a aggressive Phoenix from our opponent. Probably going to be playing against something like, I don't know, Electro Giant. Yeah, you know, after seeing Lightning and then Phoenix, I think I'm right on the money there. The good thing about our deck is we're going to have Bomb Tower, which is not something I really like when I'm running Royal Recruits, but against Electro Giant, it's great, because obviously you're going to have a really large pull radius with that. Okay, so Ram Rider, probably one of the most interesting cards that you could ever pair with Royal Recruits. A lot of top ladder players are only running like Hog Rider sometimes, but mostly going to be Royal Hogs, because, you know, the royalties got to stay together or something like that. I don't think it's really the case, but Rail Hogs give you a lot of fireball bait, and then obviously, if you're going to have fireball bait, you're going to be able to stack up fly machines, zappies, have that core component of fireball bait every single time. So your opponent's going to struggle to finish off the Rail Hogs because they're going to have to fireball on the zappies, which are going to be your best defensive option. And then if you go in for a fly machine, you're going to be able to get extra damage from that as well after defending. The core concept of Rail Hogs, Rail Recruits is the fact that you have cards that work really well on defense that immediately apply pressure on your opponent and have the potential of winning. So usually like Rail Recruits, that can also be a win condition is what I'm trying to say. From your deck, I see Rail Recruits and I'm like, I think this guy is just using it as a defensive unit and not really as an offensive card. And you're using maybe like the Ram Rider as an aggressive card and your Witch is a defensive card, and it's kind of like separated, right? As evidenced by you running a Bomb Tower. It seems like a really defensive deck instead of more of an aggressive one. With Rail Hogs, Rail Recruits, from the ones that I play at top ladder, those ones are always simultaneously defensive and aggressive at the same time, and that's how they work so well. Okay, I actually have to go for a Goblin Barrel on this Sparky. Probably one of the weirdest plays I've ever had to do. Wow, wait, we surrounded it? I didn't know if I was going to hit that because obviously with the Sparky getting knocked back, you have to have a really precise timing with that. Since I don't really know where the Sparky's going to get knocked back to, that's a hard timing to hit. I'm so glad that worked. Okay, let's go. All right, this is looking like a pretty fun game, especially since we have so many distractions for the Clash family. But yeah, that's why I would prefer to run Fly Machine over Witch, for instance, because the Fly Machine is a much better card on offense, and the Witch is just only really good on defense. I guess you can use it with Giant Graveyard and swarm your opponent, but the Witch isn't going to be able to reach the tower like the Fly Machine would be able to as another win condition. So I love running Fly Machine and Zappies instead of like Inferno Dragon and then also the Witch. There's a ton of top ladder decks, and I'm always showcasing which one is working the best in Clash Royale at the moment, because Rail Hogs, Rail Recruits is my main deck in Clash Royale. So every single month, I'll always have a video updating you guys on the best deck. So if you guys haven't already checked that out, or you like Rail Hogs, Rail Recruits, you can count on me. Also, getting back to the game, the guy's got Lightning, which is going to be a pretty big problem for me, obviously, because every time that I want to go in, it's not necessarily going to work out as well as we want. Maybe we could have went for a Goblin Barrel in time. I'm just hoping that the Ram Rider... Oh, yes. I was feeling it. I was feeling frisky. I was like, if that Ram Rider hits the tower before the Sparky's able to do anything, then that's a vibe. We can go for Recruits again on top of the Sparky. I also want to go Goblin Barrel so I can apply aggression while defending at the same time. He's just got arrows on the skeleton, so they're going to die anyway. He's got Barb Barrel and arrows and then lightning, so he's got a lot of different small spells. I think if we go in for an Inferno Dragon and just save our Rail Recruits for his aggressive Sparky, we should be fine almost every time. Going to be a more difficult game. I generally should be going in the other side with my Ram Rider. I think that's going to be our best bet just to do that right now. They go for a Witch on defense on top of the remnants of his giant... Oh, he's just spamming everything now. Is he able to arrows his way through this? He's going to Barb Barrel on defense. Now he doesn't have the Barb Barrel for the Goblin Barrel. He's arrowing on offense too. You can tell when your opponent's just had enough of your stuff and he's just like, dude, get me out of this game. At this point, he just doesn't want to play anymore. So he doesn't have any small spells, so we're just going to go in for the Goblin Barrel on the right-hand side, and then make sure that we can go in for the Ram Rider on the left if he just doesn't have any elixir left over. So yeah, he's spending all of his stuff. We're just going to go in for an Arrows and an Earthquake, and we walk with a Dominant W. Fun stuff, definitely a cool deck, but I think that the main thing to experiment with it is going to be Ram Rider plus Rail Recruits, and you adjust the other parts of the strategy that just don't work as well, like the Witch and the Inferno Dragon. As is, because I've played Rail Recruits a lot, I gotta rate this a 6 out of 10. Once you rely on your Rail Recruits and Fly Machine to get damage, they won't be disappointing you. So you don't need that extra layer of offense with the Goblin Barrel. And if you run the Rail Recruits deck that's on the screen right now, that's currently the best Rail Hogs Rail Recruits deck in the game. After the Goblin Hut nerf, you could run Barb Hut instead, or maybe even Tombstone or Goblin Cage. And if you upgrade your Rail Recruits to this deck, they'll be a 9 out of 10. The core concept of Ram Rider Rail Recruits was really cool though, and I'll definitely be experimenting with that in the future. Aimless Swarm is speeding through with the cheapest Mega Knight Wallbreakers deck that I've seen in a while. The name fits. Let's see if your deck can find its target. So it feels like this deck jumps straight out of top ladder. You've got Mega Knight plus Prince. The Mega Knight is going to be able to do a lot of splash damage to remove the distractions, while the Prince does the real damage on top of the tower or on top of units that you want to be hitting like a Musketeer. Oh, this guy's got Mega Knight too. I guess it's a really commonly played card on ladder, so we'll see if we can beat it. You know, we want to destroy ourselves right now. I have to go bats just because I'm pretty confident that the Prince needs some support here. Oh, one of the bats is going to survive, but maybe we can get the miner in front of the Prince. Let's go. He has to drop something. Why do you have Knight and Mega Knight? Clash Royale is evolving. I understand that, but you're evolving in the weirdest way. But backwards, bro. You're going in with the Knight. Oh, he's devolving. I wonder if there's going to be like a 1 elixir knight eventually. It goes from Mega Knight to Mini Knight. That's what needs to happen in Clash Royale. We're going to go in for goblins here immediately. If you drop them off to the side, they will deliver 1 extra hit. And one of the best things about the deck in general is being able to split up wall breakers. Oh man, I hate this. So I have the arrows on defense. Fortunately, the baby dragon doesn't splash onto my tower. I thought the prince was going to go back towards the goblin barrel, and then some of the goblins would end up making sure that the prince was near the tower so that the baby dragon could splash onto everything. That would have been catastrophic for me. So whenever you're defending with bats or wall breakers or even goblins, like you want to counter push and use a miner with it, especially when you're using wall breakers to kite units backward. Okay, so this guy is going to go in for an aggressive knight and also a musketeer. It really makes me feel like he's running a goblin barrel bait deck or a minor poison deck. And then, you know, he just randomly has a mega knight in there. So he's going to arrows on my dark goblin. That's kind of upsetting for us, but we can go for arrows on top of his skeleton army or on top of a minion. Okay. Oh, we hit them both. That worked out. Let's go. I'm so happy I delayed my arrows for that. I was like, and then I was disappointed because I thought I wasn't going to hit everything, and then I hit absolutely everything. So splitting the wall breakers here will force out elixir on both sides. Or maybe our opponents can ignore the right and give us the opportunity to set up an aggression in that side instead. One of the main things that I'm going to talk about right now is using the bats and also the goblins on defense. Specifically, the goblins on defense against goblin barrel. You want to drop it fast. And if you do drop it fast enough, you shouldn't take any damage. So notice how I took 0 damage from the goblin on the left-hand side. The right-hand one was helped by the dark goblin, but the one on the left was not helped by the dark goblin. And I still took no damage from that goblin, from the goblin barrel with that placement. So if you do that specific placement right behind your tower with your goblins at the right timing, you will take 0 damage from goblin barrels, which allows you to beat log bait despite having no log and no bar barrel in your deck. Really cool stuff. All right, so we need to go in for a Mega Knight here, so then our Mega Knights are going to fight it out in the middle. And I hope that the baby dragon's not going to splash onto me. I just don't want my dark goblin to die, and of course it will. Feels bad, man. We're going to go for goblins here. We're going to go in for a prince as well. And if you have to, if you absolutely have to, go for your wall breakers in this placement. It'll push the goblins off of your tower. And then, obviously, if they're off of your tower, you're going to get a lot of value. We're going to go for pre-arrows on a skeleton army. It doesn't happen. Oh, no. He somehow had elixir for Mega Knight. I might be finessed here. I think that we can still scavenge for a Mega Knight and then maybe go in for bats afterward. This is looking like a really scuffed game. I want to win this one. We're going to get a Dark Goblin down as well, and then we can go in for Miner plus Wall Breakers on the other side, depending on what happens. I haven't even played this very well, and this deck has been carrying me. Fortunately for us, we do end up having arrows for anything that he decides to drop there. We can go for goblins as well. We want to get him in a bad card cycle. So I'm going to go goblins, and then I'm going to go wall breakers on the right, and these two goblins are going to force out a response while the wall breakers might both connect. Yep. Oh, come on. He always has elixir for a Mega Knight. Is that a theme that you guys see in Clash Royale? Always finding an opponent with elixir for the Mega Knight, and you're just like, how? Is it magic? Does that thing just randomly pop out of nowhere every time? Fortunately for us, we can eat the Mega Knight on the right-hand side because it's not going to go towards the weaker tower. Maybe the goblins can lock and load up some damage. We're currently in a position where this game is really coming down to the wire. I don't want to lose this match. Especially since he ends up having arrows for our goblins and a goblin barrel. It's kind of troublesome because he can use his arrows to finish off our goblins that we would be trying to defend with. All right, I'm going to go in for a dark goblin here, and I'm going to try to arrows on these minions for some extra value. We're going to go in for wall breakers on the right-hand side maybe, or do we have to just focus on defending? I think we got to focus on defending here, guys. I'm going to go for the Mega Knight. Go for the goblins at the appropriate time. Go for bats afterward, and we're going to be able to clean that up. No damage. As you guys can see, it works every time if you do it the right point. All right, we're going to go in for a Dark Goblin and then maybe arrows on his skeleton army that he has to drop, right? Eventually, you have to drop a skeleton army. You can't just keep getting away with that. Oh my goodness. Look at that. The Dark Goblin's alive and it's going to force out arrows. Now he doesn't have arrows on offense, so he can't stop our goblins. If we're able to shut down another goblin barrel, we will walk with a win. That's all I have to do, guys. Just hit the right timing here. Just hit the right timing and we walk with a W. So we're going to go in for our goblins preemptively, and then we should be able to shut this down with literally no damage. And then we arrows on offense and we walk with a dub. So as you guys can see, this deck is incredibly solid on defense. Even if you don't have built-in counters, you can outplay your opponent and make counters out of your cheap cycle cards. I love the addition of goblins over guards and goblin gang just because of the quicker card cycle allows me to adapt and overcome sticky situations. The speedy card cycle also benefits your Mega Knight too, bouncing back to him a bit faster so you can crush all of your opponent's bridge spam. And usually top ladder decks would use Musketeer or Archer Queen instead of the Dark Goblin, but because you have so many cheap bait cards, Dark Goblin pairs perfectly with the deck. The main weakness of the deck is Mighty Miner though. If you play against someone with a Mighty Miner fast cycle deck and it locks on your Mega Knight, you have no way of resetting it. You can always sub out arrows for Zap for an Inferno and Mighty Miner reset, but then you'd have a worse matchup against Minion Horde. So I love the deck in almost all aspects. The only real weakness that you have to worry about is Mighty Miner, and that's going to be a 9 out of 10 for me. If you wanted to play champions, you can use Archer Queen instead of Dark Goblin, Minions for Bats, Guards or Goblin Gang for Goblins, and then Zap instead of arrows. Those are changes that you can make if you want to play different versions of the deck, but the deck works awesome as is. With a name like Toxic, you know it's going to be a devilish deck. He won a Grand Challenge 12-1 with this, so let's see if it's as good as he says it is. So we're on to the last deck of the day. It's time to see if it's going to be a disappointment or if it's going to dominate. The guy goes in for a Sparky starting play, so kind of want to go in for a drill on the opposite side and ignore that Sparky, procrastinate that problem for the future. The great thing about this deck is you're going to have so many distractions and a lot of spam counters with the delivery, the archers, even the skeleton barrel. I can drop on top of the minion horde and blast it back if I wanted. I think I'm going to do that so then I can use the royal delivery on defense against the Sparky. Yeah, so look at that. Skeletons are going to be tanking for the minions, and we got a little bit of a pushback on defense. Using that type of adaptability is nice. Wait, speaking of adaptability, my man just went in for a mirrored up minion horde, and then we go in for a Mighty Miner ability too. This deck is so toxic. Your name checks out, bro. So unfortunately, he's got Inferno Dragon to go and melt the Mighty Miner. The Inferno Dragon in the sky meets the Inferno Dragon in the ground, and they didn't really have a nice family reunion. That thing got melted real fast, bro. All right, what do we do here? Generally, in this type of matchup, I want to be playing at a low amount of elixir because I feel comfortable. So I'm going to go in for a Goblin Drill on the right-hand side, and then I'm going to be gearing up for a Royal Delivery depending on what he decides to do. Sparky it is. So Sparky's going to blast my goblins. I was hoping that it would waste a shot. Oh, one of the goblins is still alive. So I was kind of hoping it would waste a shot on top of the Goblin Drill, pop the Goblin Drill, and then the goblins would be able to wreak havoc on the tower because he wouldn't have the splash damage of the Sparky to finish it off. This is looking a little bit sketchy, but I think we can make this happen. Let's go for a cannon in this particular placement. Then, oh yeah, if you guys didn't know this, you can go in for an Ice Spirit plus Log. Oh no, that didn't work. Oh no! So the strategy is, if you go for Ice Spirit Log at the right timing, what will happen is the opponent can't necessarily have the Sparky shoot because the Log disrupts the Sparky, but the Wizard was on backup cleanup duty and messed up the spot. So generally what happens is basically if you do that placement and that timing, you're going to be able to finish off the Sparky with just Ice Spirit plus Log and barely take much damage. It's really fun to do. Oh wait, what can I just go for this and then activate King Tower with archers? This will likely work, right? We can pull the Mega Knight. Let's go. That's a Mega W. So also when you're running a cheap cycle deck like the one that we're playing, there's a lot of outplay potential that you can make happen as well. I love that availability. So he's going to go for Harry Potter. I'm sorry. No more magic for you today, man. Your magic and mana was used up, and you can't do any more than that. It worked once. Okay, so I think he's trying to bait out my Mighty Miner ability so then he can go for a mirrored up minion horde. But as you guys saw before, the adaptability with the skeleton barrel and then the archers will keep me covered. Or, I mean, I'm already back to another royal delivery. Let's see how archers fare themselves against minion horde with no support. They actually finished. Well, I had King Tower activation. You know, archers with no support, but a little bit of cheating. That's the way that we see it. Worked out so well. As you guys saw, Mighty Miner cannibalizes the Mega Knight, and that was one of the worries that I had in the last deck. The only matchup I didn't want to face was Mighty Miner, and for good reason. It's the best champion in the game, and probably the best card in the game, and all pros agree on that. Even if you don't have good mechanics, its high health will always bail you out. And then on top of that, you have the ability to click a 1 elixir ability to delete a 5 elixir cost card like a Minion Horde, which I think is just simply unfair. Overall, I'm going to be rating this an 8.5 out of 10. It's a ridiculously solid deck on defense, but its offense will get stomped by all the top ladder cycle decks. Because Miner plus Wall Breakers is a little bit cheaper and has less counters, it's just a better option than Drill plus Skeleton Barrel. Skeleton Barrel totally drags down the deck. I only see it played at top ladder with Giant Skeleton Clone and maybe just one Mega Knight deck. When you're running elixir efficient cheap cycle decks at the highest level of play, you're always going to be running Miner Wall Breakers. Goblin Drill gets easily countered by Valkyrie, Dark Prince, and a lot of bait cards. Whereas Miner plus Wall Breakers is way more troublesome to defend. If one Wall Breaker connects, that's 500 damage, and you can split them up so you can always get more opportunities. The Miner Magic Archer deck that I'm showing right now is always played at number 1 in the world, and in fact, it was played at number 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the world all at the same time recently. The best players in the world always play this deck because it can outplay anything if you're good enough, which means that they barely ever lose, and this deck is a 10 out of 10. If you wanted to make your deck just a little bit little bit better and not switch to Miner plus wall breakers, I would use guards or goblins instead of the royal delivery. It allows you a cheap ground distraction for princes, bandits, and bridge spam. And I 100% prefer snowball over log in this deck. So most top ladder drill players will use snowball or tornado to pull and push back Valkyries so their goblins can get more damage. And snowball's better in the deck because there's no tornado synergy. But even if you make no changes to your original deck, it's still a creative and awesome deck to play. We tested out a ton of new cool card combinations today, but one deck rose above the rest. Aimless Swarm's Mega Knight Wallbreakers deck with the speedy card cycle allows them to adapt to bad matchups and still beat them, while having the destructive damage of Mega Knight plus Prince and Miner Wallbreakers to win the good matchups easily and early on. And your other decks inspired me to play Golem Balloon for a little bit more fun and test out Rail Recruit's Ram Rider to see just how good it can get. Let me know down below in the comment section if you have more decks for the series, like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more daily content, and have an incredible rest of your day.